In today's module 3 of the training, which is titled Staying Centered in the Truth, we are going in the actual practical work, how to facilitate a workshop, a family constellation workshop, of course. Staying Centered in the Truth is the third book of Bert Hellinger, of course in German. Die Mitte fühlt sich leicht an für Kerstin. That is also a wonderful book. I don't think it has been translated to English though. But you might learn German and read all the over 50 books Bert Hellinger has written. Who knows?
Can you say the title again, Maya, please? Sorry.
Die Mitte fühlt sich leicht an.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have freely translated that book title because you would say staying centered in the truth, or the translation, the literal translation would be the center feels light, or the center feels balanced, or something like that. You know, it's always tricky to translate these things. So what are we looking at? In part 1, which is today, we are looking at the art of helping. And tomorrow, we are looking at how to structure a workshop. And then on Sunday, we are looking at personally developed and unresolved emotions and troubleshooting in a workshop setting. So today, art of helping. Now, this is another book title of Bert Hellinger. He has written a really, really comprehensive book that's thick about the helper, or the art of helping. It is another literal translation from German to English. That might actually be translated to English, actually, the art of helping.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it is, eh? So that is it's a fantastic book. I highly recommend that you find and read it. And through his work, I mean, he was not only a family constellation facilitator and then trainer or a supervision coach for other psychotherapists, but he, as you know, he was a priest. He was working in Africa. He was helping there everywhere. So he had a long history of helping. I think he came to this world to help. Definitely, that is what he did all his adult life, maybe as a kid already. And all his insights he has put together in this wonderful book. And I have 3 hours or less than 3 hours to convey that to you. So, well, that's not a problem. I just, go to the basics, and then the rest you will experience when you start to practice and helping others. And as always with Bert Hellinger, you might be surprised because he has always quite challenging and controversial things to say, as you now know, right? So bear with me. We will talk about that here. They all have a wealth of wisdom, and they are very, very practical as well. So if you follow his line of advice, or the red line he threads through the art of helping, then you will, in the end, you will see that makes a lot of sense, and it is also exceeding that what other people think helping is, if you will. Yeah. Okay, Kerstin.
I just wanted to say that when you go on YouTube and you Google Bert Hellinger and the art of helping, he has got a fabulous YouTube clip there where he explains in about 10-15 minutes how the relationship between helping helper and the helped ones is going, or what stands behind it a little bit. I found it really fascinating, and I've listened to it maybe 2 or 3 times already.
Yeah, so I think we have that on the list of YouTube videos from Bert Hellinger on the community side.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, true.
So definitely, if you haven't done so, don't just watch my videos here, the video recordings. Go to the community side and watch all the videos that are linked there. There are, I don't know how many hours, which you can spend, all part of your training, watching these videos, and they are just amazing. And since he, of course, passed away 2019, there are new videos, and also the latest work of him is not very well documented, so that you don't find like nowadays you find millions of YouTube videos. It's not the case. And if you find another YouTube video that you think is very valuable from Bert Hellinger directly in English or with English subtitles, please add it to the list of Bert Hellinger YouTube videos. We are kind of creating a little library there, a video library with YouTube videos. Yeah? Okay? Awesome. Right. So, the art of helping. Let's see what we're looking at. So, first of all, we're looking at the position of the helper, of course, in line with the first orders of love. We are looking at how to lead a client in a workshop setting. Yeah. Then we are looking how to lead the group, because we are in a workshop setting. We have not only the client, we have also a group. We are talking about group dynamics. The group dynamics are not specifically for family constellation workshops. They are general or generic, if you will. But however, the ones that I have chosen are the ones that I have observed intends to happen in a family constellation workshop. Yeah. We are talking about leading the representative. That's quite different to leading the client or leading the group. And we are also talking in a workshop setting how we use respectively changing our powerful words or less powerful words into powerful words. And then we talk about traps to fall into while we are in the in our shoes as a helper, especially when the shoes are new and they are a little bit tight, and you walk in that quite uncomfortable, like new shoes are. That has been proven. There are certain pitfalls that I would like to point your awareness to, so you are prepared when they come to you. So I'm starting with a quote from Bert Hellinger. Of course, it is in English. I have translated it. All you have to do is to place yourself in the position as a facilitator and trust the field to guide you all the way. Yeah. So that is very profound what he says, because who is a facilitator? That's not a random person who steps up and say, I can help you. No, a facilitator is somebody who has knowledge, who has experience, yeah, in this field, and who knows they are facilitating. They know when and what they are doing. And once this knowledge and this experience has been gained, that is what he says, that is a facilitator. The rest is a trainee at best, yeah? So this is a facilitator, and when you are the facilitator, then you just place yourself in this position that we're talking about today, in the right position as the helper, and then you can trust the morphogenetic field that it will guide you. Yeah, that's the good news. So having said that, that is opposite to somebody who says, oh, everybody can do that. I'm very intuitive. And then they just get their group together and say, okay, now we do this family constellation thing. And I'm the facilitator, and you are the whatever that's called, representatives, resonators, or group members, or family members, or whatnot. Yeah. And then I just trust the field and see what the field tells me. Yeah. This is the opposite side of what we do. This is what I call intuitives who have no knowledge, and they cannot access the information from the field in the orders that we have learned from Bert Hellinger. They will access something, but what are they doing with it? What are the representatives doing with it, right? So it is very, very important to be aware that the facilitator Bert Hellinger is talking here about is the knowledgeable and experienced facilitator. Yeah? But then, once you have gained all of these properties, then you can fully trust the morphogenetic field. And you don't need your notebook to look up things, yeah? That's not necessary anymore. So let's talk about the position of the helper. The position of the helper, and we have briefly scratched on the surface in module 1, part 1, is at the bottom of the system next to the client. Yeah. Remember why at the bottom of the system? Because he is the last, or he or she is the last one to come into this family system, right? Because the helper is entering the family system in the moment the client sits next to them, not before. So obviously, the helper is the last one who is part of the family system. This is why it needs to be at the bottom. However, it is not a full member of the family system, just a temporary member of the family system as long as the constellation lasts. Yeah. And the client is the one who comes to the workshop. So even if the client has children, the facilitator is not coming after the children. It is coming in line with the client because that is the one who seeks help. But the facilitator is not there for the client. The facilitator is there for the whole family system. Yeah? You have to think of the client as a messenger sent by the family system. He or she is the one who got the most suffering or felt the urge to do something about it, to heal a family wound, and then in the wake of it, the issues will be lessened or solved as well, right? This family system comes always first. So if there is a discrepancy between what the client wants and what you as a facilitator see in the constellation, what the family system wants, you go with the family system. You don't go with the client, yeah? That is maybe different to other forms of helping where you only have a client and let's make a very blunt example. You have a painter in your house, yeah, and you want to paint the walls green, and the painter comes and say, "No, no, I paint them red," yeah. Then obviously that's not okay. The painter has to do what the client wants, yeah. So it has to paint it green or can leave. But in a family constellation, that's not the case. When the client wants to look at an issue, let's say, or doesn't want to look at a specific issue, and then while the family constellation is starting or in the midst of it, this issue arises he didn't want to look at. We are not saying, okay, the client didn't want that, we are not going there. We are trusting the morphogenetic field. And therefore, we do go there with the field, guided by the field. And in the end, the client will be happy that you don't do that because all he was is, or she was, is in fear to look at that. Yeah, unconsciously, of course. But once the guidance of the field brought the family system there, the client will keep up with that. I have never yet experienced that the client was fighting with the facilitator about anything like that. Yeah. So normally there is a kind of a smooth transition. Yeah. And so just be aware, even if the client said, but we didn't want to look at it, then you say, yeah, but we do now because the field, is opening up to this. As Bert Hellinger has said in the little quote I gave you, connect with your knowledge and experience and then let go. Yeah. Don't go in with your mind. You don't need your mind. The representatives don't need their minds. The client is normally the one with the biggest ego mind in the room. at that time when they have a constellation, but also the client has to let go of it. Yeah. So that is important, that you as a helper not feel like you're not thinking about it too hard, what is to do. Yeah. Then another thing is very funny. Normally people say, what? You want to achieve nothing. That's important. You are facilitating a constellation, but the outcome for you is completely, whatever happens, yeah, that's completely equal to you. You do not want to achieve healing for your client. You don't want to achieve, I don't know, when you see an interrupted movement towards the mother, that there is a great love from the child to the mother at the end of a constellation. That's not your position. Yeah. Remember, that's not the position of the helper. The helper wants to achieve nothing. The helper is there, the facilitator is there to provide the environment where the family system can take over, yeah, and find that what heals the family wound. And if this has nothing to do with the issue of the client, then that's good as well. Yeah. And we will talk about that then, how to deal with disappointed clients, right? Of course, that's then inevitably, like, or not inevitably, but that can then happen in this circumstance. You have no desire to help, right? This is a biggie one. How does this even work, right? I will tell you how it works. If you have the desire to help, you are in a state of need. Yeah? You need to be needed. And from this state of neediness, you cannot facilitate a family constellation because you are not out of your ego mind, and therefore you cannot connect with the morphogenetic field. You can have the desire to help before the constellation starts. I don't say that, right? You have the desire to help, maybe that brought you to do the training. That's all good. But in a family constellation, in a workshop, this has to drop, the desire to help, yeah? And that has also to drop if you have not enough time for, like, to provide a constellation or facilitate a constellation for everyone in the room. That's fine. It is what it is, yeah? Or when for some reason somebody has a very long constellation and therefore a lot less chances for everybody else to get a constellation, that's fine. If you don't have this desire to help everybody who's in the room, this doesn't matter. Yeah. And if it doesn't matter to you, it won't matter to the group. I will talk about that on group dynamics. Yeah. So just be assured, if it doesn't matter to you, if you know you don't have the desire to help, you're not there to help, you're there to provide an environment where self-healing can and will take place. That's what you do. Yeah? Okay, what else? Important is in the position of the helper to be able to wait in silence. Especially at the beginning of the journey, we do feel the urge to talk a lot. And I'm talking about a new facilitator with not so much experience. They want to hear a lot, they want to get information from the client, and then they probably also often want to talk about what they perceive. Yeah? But that is not a good way to help your client. The better way is that you can comfortably sit in silence with your client and wait for what? What do you think? For what are we waiting? For Godot? For what are we waiting? Karen?
For the morphogenic field?
Yeah. To get the information we need to start. or to continue. Yeah. Right? So this goes hand in hand with the urge to do something. You want to do something, right? We are not a doer neither. The morphic field is the doer. The representatives are the doer. Yeah. But the facilitator is actually not the doer. He's more a guidance. Yeah. A guide for the a guide, so the helping hand of the morphogenetic field and a guide for the people in the constellation. That's what he is. Very important is also, I don't know whether you have heard of that, the term not knowing. Yeah, have you ever heard of it? Or not? Or do you have a vague, like, image what that might be? Karen, what do you say? Did you raise your hand? Sorry, I didn't get it.
No, sorry, I was just putting my thumb up. Yeah, the art of not knowing, therefore we're not holding any preconceived notions or ideas of how things should or shouldn't be. We're just sort of left empty, waiting for what is.
Yes. How does this go in line with my when I talked about just a few minutes ago that you need knowledge? Is it a dichotomy or no?
No. Did you want to talk, Kirsten?
Well, the one thing has nothing to do with the other. Your experience gives you, I don't know, I wouldn't know for the word, but this not knowing is you are just empty towards, as Karen said, no perceiving of anything how it should be. But it's got nothing to do with not having experience yourself.
Yeah. The knowledge is your plumber's toolbox. That's full with tools. And you have learned how and when to use your tool. Yeah. Therefore, you don't need to know what's going on. You just see what's needed and kind of instinctively get the right tool out of the box. Yeah, if you will. That's the difference. And there's actually yes, Kerstin?
Just now for me to clarify. So when you were talking about knowledge and experience, did you mean specifically in family constellation that you had knowledge, that you have knowledge about it and that you have the experience, or did you also talk about life experience?
Well, the first one first, of course, as a facilitator.
Yeah.
But yes, definitely, Kirsten, it's very important to understand that everything you are, everything you have experienced, everything else you have learned outside of this course or outside of family constellation is also adding to your knowledge.
Okay.
So definitely a rich life is enabling you to have a broader viewpoint on things when you see that, yeah, as a smaller one. However, having said that, first of all, knowledge and experience of family constellation facilitating is important, because when you can do that, and let's say your life experience is not that much. You're maybe young, or you never left your hometown and you always worked in the same job with the same people, just saying, yeah? So
Yeah.
you didn't really have a broad experience in life. This will just allow the participants to come in to get exactly what you can offer, because this is the guidance of the morphogenetic field. The group is not coming together randomly, yeah? So the facilitator who is there to provide this environment that the movement of the soul can happen, to bring a family system towards a unity and healing, has everything that is required for this particular workshop. That is really, so there is no failure with a good foundation of knowledge and experience in facilitating. And once when you gain more life experience through your own personal destiny, yeah, then this will just broaden, so you will attract other participants, other clients. They will be attracted because now you can offer more, and so more people or different people will come. Yeah. So also when you hear from somebody, they say, "Oh, I was in this workshop, family constellation, and it really didn't go well." You know, there was the facilitator didn't know what to do, and you know, and if they know about Bert Hellinger and orders of, let's say, and they never followed the orders of love, they did just random things, which you hear often actually, yeah. Then you know, you don't just say, "Oh, that's so horrible for the participants. They wasted all the time and money." No, they were there because of this, because that's all they could bear at the moment. Yeah. They were not ready for the deep healing, for the big release of emotions, of traumas. They are not ready. But they're interested. Yeah. So that you need also these facilitators. They're offering kind of more this happy go around the workshop group get together, where everybody feels happy, other than they know about Bert Hellinger's Orders of Love, then they're not happy, but everybody else is happy because it's a get together. They hug a lot, they cry a lot. It's all about emotions. And that's all they could actually take. Yeah.
But are we not losing them then? Like, do we not lose them?
No,
no.
I wouldn't say no. If they are ready, they will find another facilitator who guides them
Okay.
towards, with the Orders of Love towards deeper healing. Yeah. For some, that is just the start. Not everybody can jump in the deep end of the pool. Some can just put their toes in the cold water. That's all they can, And then the foot, and then maybe next summer they go into their hips. And others, they see the pool and they say, "Where's the deepest end? I want to dive my deepest dive." And then they do that. So that is really good that we have like this variety of facilitators also. So even if you hear stories of some facilitators who doesn't seem to know anything from Bert Hellinger, that's okay. There's no need to be cross or worried for the people or whatever. No. I know what you mean, Kerstin. It's a little bit that this term family constellation is watered down. Of course it is, because they're all using the same term, family constellation. But you have the same in yoga. Just look what happens in yoga for the last 20 years. Who is actually doing the original yoga? Very, very rarely. And I do that actually, not actually original, but closer than everybody else in our really tiny communities here. And we have, mind you, we have like 15 yoga teachers here or so. This is insane, Like as many as pupils in school, if you will. So we have 15 yoga teachers here. Nobody of them is chanting or uses Om as a sound vibration or has an intention set in the beginning. Nothing like what is in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Nothing. Yeah. But their classes are full, and to me, there's only a handful coming, which is great, because they have the choice. And maybe they do that for years and go to a class where it's basically a workout. And then they feel, and then somebody says, "Hey, come to the yoga yurt," and then they maybe come, and then a whole new universe opens up for them, that's great. So no, let them all be. They all have, like every creature they has in nature, they all have a right to be where they are. Okay, so you can ask your teachers for support. I mean, on a spiritual level. I mean, not ring them in a family constellation. Ask them, "What should I do now? What should I do?" On a spiritual level, you can ask your teachers for support. That's also a tradition from yoga, but it's also something that I learned from Bert and Sophie Hellinger. because not from them, but from fellow trainees, because they have said when they started workshops, they had, you know, you have the chairs in a workshop setting, and then they put 2 chairs, empty chairs, behind them for Bert and Sophie Hellinger, which I found a little bit spooky. But anyhow, so they had the chair, so they felt the support of their teachers, right? So I don't want you to put a chair there for me when you start facilitating. I won't come, also not in spirit, but you can ask for support by, you know, by just asking for it, and then it will be there, and it makes you feel stronger, because the support is on an energetic, spiritual level, obviously, and not on a physical level. Other they put a picture of their teacher. That's also a yoga tradition. Put a picture of their teacher on the little side table, or a symbol for their teachers, or for their teachings, or for their own parents, because they are our greatest teachers. So, you know, so this all helps to be in the right position as a helper, if you have this support. Yes?
So I don't think I'm quite clear about who the teachers would be then. Like, for you, now you are our teacher here, yeah?
Yeah.
So my parents were teachers in a way to me, for example. So can you clarify a little bit more? So you said you wouldn't come, but and even if we would call you in, you know, inwardly, Maya, help, please. Don't know what to do. Then you say no, go away.
No, go away.
So give me a little bit of I'm not quite clear about that. Sorry.
And I'm not quite clear of your question, Kerstin. So I would just repeat. Your teachers is everyone who you feel has helped you to gain knowledge on your way. Everyone. So it's me, of course it's Bert Hellinger as well, because I have it from Bert Hellinger, so he's definitely included, and even Sophie Hellinger. It's your parents, if you feel you have, you know, they have taught you.
Good.
It's probably somebody else that has taught you, that has broadened your horizon. So all of them. Yeah,
Okay.
and then if you just think of all of them and be grateful for their teachings and for what they have given to you, yeah, and then you ask for support as you would do to your ancestors in the family system. You would say,
Yeah,
please
okay.
support me. Please
Cool.
give me your support. Yeah, and then they will be there. And it is nice if you think about it, maybe you meditate on that before you start, and then you find a symbol, or there's maybe a flower you want to pick, or whatever, and that is representing your teachers and the teachings, and then you place it in the workshop next to you or somewhere in the room.
Cool. Thank
and
you.
That, good. So that really helps to get you in the right space as a helper, and makes you as strong as it can be. So I have read the book by Peter Ralston, The Book of Not Knowing. If you would like to, I highly recommend it. If you are not quite sure how that goes, to unravel the knowingness and go into a state of not knowing. I was wondering, Coyne, that you didn't ask me how to do that. To not know what you know? You were thinking of it. I know, I know.
I've been thinking about it. So I think other than having not having a prejudgmental or preoccupied notion, it's probably because I think everyone has some opinion over certain things.
Yeah.
Probably it is strong opinion, then we loosely held it, so that we are ready to let go the strong opinion that we have when it is necessary.
Yes.
Yeah, a strong opinion loosely held.
It is like this. So to set knowing with opinion, it's probably not equal opinion. Opinion is judgmental knowing, so it's a little bit stronger. But even if you know, like, I do a very blunt example, right? You know that the sky is blue, yeah, and the sun is yellow, and the trees are green, right? That's your knowledge, your knowingness, I say. Now, the exercise that Peter Russen had in his book is to not, how can I say, to not describe it in the same way. To say, no, the sky doesn't need to be blue. The tree doesn't need to be green. And the sun doesn't need to be yellow. Yeah? It could be completely different. I just don't see it yet. Yeah? And that is not an opinion. That's a neutral. What you think is an observation is to let go of this, even this observation, and say, why? No, it could be completely different. No? And this openness is super healing, not only as a facilitator, just as a person. It is super healing. And that is, I think he really maps it out in his book and really guides very well with some exercises and stuff. Guides very well how to unravel all this knowingness, what we think is so important. And yeah, so that's, I hope that helps, Courtney.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So now we talk about leading the client. So first of all, there must be an invitation to constellate. That's my personal opinion, because Bert Hellinger sometimes was in a huge, in a room with many people, over 100 people, and lots of people want to constellate, and he was pointing his finger at somebody in the last row and said, "You!" And then this person and he said, "You come." So he didn't wait for an invitation. So he never invited the clients to come. You know, he just picked them. And of course, it was guided by the feel, and of course, it was great. However, I have the feeling when we have a small group, which we do, because we are not filling halls with our participants. If we have a small group, I think, well, I like it more that they want to do it, really. I don't want to ask somebody who doesn't want to do it. So I think it is important that you invite the client to constellate. Until you are so versed and so experienced that you know, you go in a room and you know who's first, second, third, and then you just call them. You know, of course it can happen. I don't want to take it away from you, this ability. But in general, I would say, okay, who wants to constellate? This is how a workshop starts. Who wants to constellate? And then they bring up their hands, and then how do you choose? Whom do you choose? That's the next question. What would you say? Who has an opinion?
I would just go by my instinct. I don't know. I would just be guided already.
So you wouldn't go with the one who puts up the hand first?
No, not necessarily. I think because I've been observing it now in live workshops. I would just go with my gut feeling or what my instinct tells me, what the field is saying. This is the person, not the one that has screamed the loudest or is the tallest or the prettiest or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, very good. I would say the same. Be guided by the field. The morphogenetic field is also choosing who's putting up the hands, who's not putting up their hands, and whom you choose or pick. That's all guided. So there is no wrong. You can also go with the hand first. Who has the hand first? That's also guided. You know, you can also go with the one who has the hand up last. Yeah. I just want to know. I just want to point to everything that happens in the workshop is guided. Yeah. So don't forget that. So we don't really need to worry about that, and we really don't need a fixed module how to do that, right? All I say is it is always nice to invite to constellate, and sometimes you might have nobody raising the hand for the first constellation. That happens. Nobody wants to be the first. especially if you have a lot of new people there and not so many people you can rely on because they have been for a while. And then what are you doing then? What do you think? What do you do then? Just throw something at me.
Or just let it be silent for a moment, give it space.
That's a very good point. Very good option. Yes. Kerstin?
Maybe there's some exercises that could be done to break the ice.
Very good.
Sort of,
yeah.
To maybe show
like
them there's nothing to be afraid of. Because what I've realized is people are scared. They literally scared or afraid because they don't know what's coming if it's their first time in a workshop, you know.
Very good.
And because it's hard to really explain what will go on, a simple little exercises could do the trick, maybe.
That's a good point. I think so too. So we have sitting in silent, great, and be comfortable with it and just wait. So if nobody shows up the hand, then you just sit there. You sit there for half an hour. You need somebody to show up the hands. Otherwise, they are all wasting their time. I like that. I also like that to do an exercise. I think that would be great to say, okay, nobody wants to have a constellation. Everybody gets up. Now everybody gets a constellation. So everybody gets up and does like a pair thing, like a pair exercise, mother or father or partner or something. What we do here, that you could actually, transfer into a workshop setting. And then, of course, there's also the third option, to just talk about family constellation, because they are maybe too new, and so they need more information how it works, right? And so ignite their curiosity then. So I would say these are the three obvious options, and there are certainly more than that. You can also let them go out for a walk 15 minutes and come back, with a fresh mind. Or you can leave the room and say, "I come back when somebody's here who wants my help." There's lots of things to do, right? As long as you're doing that from the heart center, of course. So always with lots of love towards the people who are there. So next thing, where does a client sit? Now, if you were in the chat room when we were having our little quiz that finally Reem won about the second episode of Another Self, you know that, of course. But I will repeat it here. Where does a client sit?
To the right.
To the right of the facilitator. Now, there are other options. The client could sit opposite, right? I don't know. Like, you want to talk to the client, might want to do that face to face. What would be it's a bit weird, no? But what would be the problem with that?
It's like a confrontation already.
It's a confrontation, and then the client shows the back to the group, right?
Okay.
Or the group sees both only from the side. While we would always hear our heart space, we will always have that open towards everyone who's present. Yeah? So in a one-on-one situation, yes, they can sit they can sit opposite of you, the clients. That's not a confrontation. You have to work with them on a table. That's quite normal. But in a group situation, you're not only working with the client, you have the whole group. So you never turn your back towards the whole group or your side, right? And the same is for the client, because he's part of this whole experience too, obviously. Yeah. So on the right, remember why on the right? Part of the second orders of love.
Because they came before the facilitator.
Yes. Very good. That's it. The facilitator comes later. He's the last one to enter the family system. So he cannot be on the right. Okay, leading the client means to connect with the field and see what information about the client and the family system and the issue comes. So when you watch the videos from Bert Hellinger, if they show it, he normally sits next to the client in silence for quite a while. It's not like, okay, you come sit here, what's your problem? That's not exactly how he works. And that's also not exactly how I work. Because this moment in silence is where you pick up. Because you don't know if the client is telling you anything that you need to know for the family constellation. It could be completely drama, rubbish, nothing of value, right? You don't know that and once they start to talk and got your attention, then you might follow his train of thoughts, which you don't want to. So it's much better to let the client sit in silence, you sit in silence, and you wait what comes up. I make an example how important that is. Years ago, I had not a family constellation, a free talk that was in Wellington, our capital in New Zealand. And there were probably 30 people or so, and most of them have never been to a family constellation, and they were curious and interested. And so they were just sitting there in a large circle, and I was talking about what it is a little bit, and Bert Hellinger, of course. And then I said, okay, and I'm happy to make a demonstration. So would anybody would like to come and sit next to me? And then it was a little bit like, no, actually, nobody really wanted to come. And then a woman in her, I don't know, in her 60s, I would say, put up her hand and said, okay, well, I can come. So she sat there, and then, because it was a demonstration, and I didn't have much time, I didn't want to waste time, I asked her, so what is it about? And then she said, it's nothing about. I just come because you had nobody ever came. So she didn't give a clue, yeah. And then I thought, okay, so we are beyond a demonstration here. nothing to demonstrate. So just sitting in silence and connecting with the field. And I think it took a few minutes, to be honest, when I recall that correctly. And then I got this information of a fire, like a physical fire. And then I asked her, what is about the fire? And then she broke down in tears. She completely released a lot of traumatic experience and was sobbing and said in between sobs, oh my gosh, I dream every night I'm going to die in a fire. Right. And then this is how we started the family constellation. And then obviously there was a traumatic experience in her ancestral line where they burned to death. And that was then not a demonstration, as you never can demonstrate anything. It's always real. It became a full-fledged, very intense family constellation with all newbies there. So this is just what the field wanted to happen, and then that what was happening. So this is how important it is to be able to connect with the field. Yeah. And the connection to the field is not a strangeness doing, it's the opposite, is not knowing, not doing. Yeah? It's like in meditation. When you are, I want to meditate and I don't want to think, in this day, you can't meditate, right? You can only meditate if you say, whatever happens, I don't care. Yeah? Everything can happen, but I'm not attached to it. And then it lets go of you, the grip, and then you are open to higher consciousness, higher energies. So stay empty and collected, and feel what he or she feels. I'm talking about your client, right? So in this case, I said to you, I saw this fire, but it could also more often is you feel a pain. More often is that you sit to your client, the client is not talking, and you all of a sudden feel your heart is racing, or you got an itch, or a pain in the shoulder, or often in the neck, or jar, or you can't open your eyes. The eyes are so heavy all of a sudden. Don't think 1 second that this is you. This is an information from the field. There is no doubt. You just need to be aware of it, right? So when you empty and collect it, you are aware of the sensation, and there is no doubt that has nothing to do with you because you are not present. Yeah? And when you are not present, then it's inevitably whatever sensation you get is from your client. And then you can ask what is with your shoulder. Yeah? And then they will tell you, oh my gosh, my shoulder, that hurts all the time. But they didn't even think of bringing that up. Yeah, it's very often the case that they even don't think about the true pain, or they carry, they're camouflaging that with something else. Oh, I want to look at my brother's relationship. They are kind of, whatever. Then the story comes about the brothers. Nothing to do with the brothers. So then it's really good if you can feel the shoulder pain, and it's easier to feel it at the beginning as when they already start to talk. When they already start to talk, we are all kind of, even if we don't want it, following it with, with 1 or 2 brain cells at least, the train of thoughts that they are developing there. So how do we stay empty and collected? Just by unraveling, not knowing. Yeah. So this is why I'm not a big meditator, by the way, but meditation practice is helpful to train that, of course, because we all get distracted by thoughts all the time, all time. I mean, nobody is different. But the art is that you are not bothered by them, and that you don't wish they were not there. Right? Rejection or anything like this, that you are able to sit in silence and meditate or connect with your client, and all the thoughts come up and they can say whatever they want, and that is the not knowingness. This is not important. That's the only thing you need to know. Not important. So then the next question is, let them talk or not talk? That is the question. It's free after Shakespeare, of course. So do we let the client talk or not? That's always difficult to judge. I like to do the middle path, a little bit talking, yes, but not too long. Some clients, they just need to talk that off their chest. Otherwise, they are not available. They would always try to give you these stories that they think you need to know, or at least they need to get rid of out of their system, and maybe burden you with the stories or something. That's fine. You cannot be burdened. You're never taking that on. They can talk a little bit. That goes in here and out there. It's like in meditation when thoughts arise, they go in and out, and I don't care. And then randomly, when you think, now that was enough, after a few minutes later, you say, okay, let's stop here and let's start. So you don't need to react to anything they have said. You don't need to give your opinion to that or nothing. And if you are like me, you didn't even listen to what they were saying. You just say, okay, let's start with your work, which you know what it is. They don't know that. You are the facilitator. You are leading the client, right? So you say, so when the client is talking, there will be something. Either there will be nothing, or there will be something that is actually raises your eyebrow, like something that has a strong impact, right? let's say this story. You're talking about the brothers and brothers and brothers and brothers, and then in the stories with the brothers, oh, when I was young, I was falling from a tree on my shoulder. You know, that was within the stories you hear, and all of a sudden, when you already feel the pain in the shoulder, then you, oh, this is actually an information I take. You know, but that's the only information you take, and you don't need to say that to your client. That is for you. That is the guidance of the field, how you work, how you start to work. So when you then say, okay, let's start, and then the client expects that you ask him to get representatives from all their brothers, right? Because that's what you were talking about. Then you say, choose a representative for your shoulder and one for yourself. And they're like, what? You know. But that's all you need. Yes, Kerstin.
So what do you do then when, for example, you say, okay, so let's stop here and let's start setting up, yeah? And the client says, no, look, before you cut me off, because I've just been witnessing that, you know, and I thought, whoa. So what do you do then? Like when there's someone really determined to bring their point across, which we know is not important for us, yeah, but they are so determined to keep it their way. That's what I'm actually trying to say, you know.
Yes, I know what you are saying, Kerstin, and I say when this is happening, the client is leading you. You are not leading the client.
Yeah, I know, but so what? I do realize that, but how do you go about that? Like when you said once,
you learn how to lead a client, and they will not do that to you.
Okay.
That's the only answer I can give.
Yeah. Okay, because the other thing is when you said yes, okay, let them go on. Some of them are really desperately in need for telling you some of the stuff, yeah. But I can see that this might be quite a difficult place to be as a facilitator when you're starting out, you know.
Yes, totally. You're totally right, Kerstin. I totally get it, and it will happen to you, and that's fine. You will learn from it.
Okay.
You will end up on slippy slopes all the time. That's fine. You will learn from it. That's it. You will find your way. So as a practical example, if you know, as a beginner and the client takes over the lead and says, no, you really need to know that, and continues to say, then you can say, at least you can say, okay, you can tell us all the story, but remember this time is coming off your constellation. You don't have extra time for that. Right? So instead of working, you can talk. If that's what you want to spend your time with, that's fine. That's something comes to my mind that you could say. And always friendly and always patient, always in love for your client. If that's what they want, then that's what they want. And if they say, oh, yeah, okay, I really want to continue to talk, then let them talk. I'm just making up a case now. Let them talk and say, okay, fine. Thank you. Go back to your seat, because that was it. No more time. Then it was about talking. And that was also guided by the field. Remember, there's nothing right or wrong. You know? Just there is no need to fight against what's happening. Yeah? And of course, then they would say, but we haven't concentrated. Yeah, but you wanted to talk. We can't do both. You know? And then say, oh, if I would have known, then say, next time come to the next workshop. Now you know. You know?
Yeah, good. Cool. Thank you.
But always in love, not confrontational, of course. That's not the helper's position. No.
It would be a hard one. At the beginning, it would be a hard one.
I know. But this is learning how to swim. It's not always easy. Okay, so that's my take on that. Either or a little bit or nothing. You can choose whatever you prefer, but make sure you're not giving this, why we're talking about this example with what Kerstin brings up, make sure you're not giving a client in a workshop who wants to talk so much more space than anybody else. Yeah, that would not be fair. Okay. So avoid suggestive questions. So when you ask the client, you ask him straight. You ask him, what was with your mother? What was with your father? Do you know your grandmother? And suggestive question is, wasn't your mother away all the time? You know, because you think he has an interrupted movement towards the mother. So that would be a suggestive question. Or wasn't your father not quite violent? Because you feel that there's some aggression in there. And that's not only because of what they were talking, but it's also in a constellation, the gestures they are giving you as representatives, yeah, leads to the pitfall of asking suggestive questions. Yeah. You either make a statement or you ask a straight question. There's nothing in between. And of course, you know, you will certainly do that when you start, and that's fine. You learn from it. As long as you, I made a suggestive question. As long as you realize it in hindsight, that's a learning experience. So, when you're leading the client, you can only lead the client if you're neither an authority nor a friend. So obviously, if you're a friend, you cannot lead the client because you would be like on one level and they wouldn't follow you. It would be like a permanent exchange. But what is about the authority? What do you think? Why not being authoritarian? Something? Karen.
Is it because of the orders of love again?
Yes.
And that's, yeah.
Very good. Yes. Yes. You are not their teacher. You're not their father. You're not their mother, neither, right? You're the facilitator. So to say, I know it better and you shut up now, is not what we say, right? We say, we are here to facilitate, not to listen. Yeah? So our work is to facilitate. We don't need them to say anything to facilitate. Yeah? But if they want to talk, fine. But they have just a very narrow time span for that. Right? And you don't need to be authoritarian to say them that. You can say, yeah, that's fine. Say something, but then we need to shop. We need to work. Well, and that's not authoritarian. To stay in the orders of love. Because they come to you to be led, right? They don't come to lead you. Although they think sometimes they want to do that, but in truth, they want you to lead them because they don't know what you know. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there, obviously. So what are we doing with difficult clients? So imagine your client as 4-year-old. That's the best advice I can give you. If you have a client next to you and for some reason it's nasty, yeah, and you feel you are worked up, you feel something is boiling inside of you, yeah, or you feel unsure, maybe this client reminds you of your father or whatnot, yeah, if something is bothering you, so you feel like a personal violence or something like that, you just look at the client as a 4-year-old child, because this is how it acts. This is how he or she acts, right? Otherwise, you would be open to your leadership. But difficult clients are not open to your leadership. So what they normally have is a massive either mother or father issue. And this is good to see them as a 4-year-old. You can be much more gentle and much more forgiving with what they say and stay in love and stay with the heart open. Makes a big difference. And secondly, they will feel that you look at them as a child, and they will go into their what is already the opening of a constellation, into their childhood unconsciously, into the trauma that they have experienced, which made them to be so nasty. So that's good. I have another example, just comes to my mind. I had a client lately and that was not in a workshop situation. She was just she had a very bad relationship, and she said always yes, yes, yes in this relationship because she was afraid of the partner, of his physical strength. And when we were working in a that was more a regression setting, then when she was at this point where this partner appeared so dominant and so violent, I said to her, now look how he shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until he's only the size of a gnome, or I don't know what I said. And then you could see she was in, and she could see how her face, she smiled and smiled and smiled, and she was not afraid anymore. It was smiling. Because people who are aggressive, they want to make you smaller so they appear larger. Because in truth, these people are very small and you are very big, and that's what they fear. Yeah. So if you reverse it and put it back into order and they see them, then they're in the right position and you can go ahead with whatever you want to do. The same with a client who is somehow nasty and bothering you. Yeah, it's difficult. You can see them as a small child because that's all they are. And they're trying to be big and strong and oppressing others and make them smaller, right? So they appear taller to them, but in fact, because only they know they need to camouflage that they are actually on a soul level still a child and very small and helpless. So that's just a little hint. But there are of course other things you can do, but you will see that. I would like you to focus on one thing that you can memorize and not give you 10 different things and then you have a difficult client you don't remember any. Yeah? So just do that. Just look at him as a 4-year-old child. If you feel, if there's a feeling of resistance in the client against you, right? To open up, for example, or to talk, or to not to talk, or if you feel there's a resistance, then check if there's something wrong with your own expectations. Yeah, if you are expecting something from the client and he's not providing that. Yeah. So, for example, as a startup facilitator, you are expecting, subconsciously maybe, that the clients are nice to you and gentle, because you're just a beginner, and you don't want difficult situations. So that is an expectation, right, that most have. Or they have the opposite. They expect everything goes horribly wrong and I have only difficult clients, yeah? And of course, the clients are picking that up, right? They are resonating with it too. So they might just be a mirror for you. So always bear that in mind, yeah? That you might have to work on your, probably not in this situation, but definitely in hindsight, on your expectations, how the client has to behave when they sit next to you. So dealing with expectations of the client, especially if they have done many family constellations before. So now we talked a lot about the newbies, who you have to guide and tell, what is important, what is not important. But now we have the one that has been to many, many family constellations. You don't know who was facilitating them. You have no idea whether they were versed in what they do or not so qualified, but the client thinks that they are super experienced. Now, this is a whole different story to work with these clients, because they think they can tell you how to facilitate, basically, their own issue, right? And of course, they will do that in a nice way, because they've been on many family constellations and they won't be confrontational. But they would be nice, but nasty, because they say, no, I want my grandmother there from my father's side I know that there is an issue. You know, that would be like this. That would be like this. Yeah. Now the question is, would you want to go with them or not? Up to you. Of course you can go with that, right? And see where it leads you and if you're happy with the constellation. Or you can just, go back to yourself, be very open and get the information from the field and says, in this constellation, the grandmother plays no role. You can say that. You are the leader. You are the facilitator. However, it is very important to not be led by the client. So you're not turning tables just because the client has expectations. You don't give him the rope and say, okay, if you know it better, just go. You go. No. That's not fair, because in the end, they come for a consultation and for help. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So there is no place to give them up and say, yeah, you know what to do, and do it, and sit there and be kind of, I don't know the English term, beleidigte Leberwurst, Kerstin, what would that be? Is there an English term?
A sulking child, like a sulking child.
A what?
A sulking child, like
a sulking
child.
Yeah.
You know, the kids that are sulking.
Sulking.
Yeah.
Sulking. So that's not what you want to be, of course, right? Obviously. Right? So avoid that. And find a way to take over the reins again, and lead the client with love towards his issue and his healing. Changing the position of the client is also a good a method to swap them out of the mind. For example, let's say they are sitting on the chair, you go on with the constellation, and then they kind of want to talk and want to interpret or asking you all the time. Just ask them to stand up and sit on another chair, on another empty chair. No, that changes completely the dynamic. So think a little bit outside the box. If you want change to happen, something needs to change. Yeah? And that is a good one. Just change the perspective, to put him on another seat. He will see something completely different then, and be out of his mind, or out. Yeah. So we can also work with absent clients. Yeah. So that's also, I do that once in a while in workshops, not so much as in practice workshops, that I introduce a case from my clients who want to look at it without being there, and that's totally fine. Yeah, totally fine. It's the same as a client. Yeah, you're connecting with that. You maybe have done that before because you have talked about that before with the client, and then you are prepped, and then you can go with the guidance of the field when you constellate. So the chair actually next to you is empty. Yes, Courtney.
Maya, so when you say absent clients, so you still get their consent. That means they know that you are consolating for them.
They ask you to do that.
It's just that they are not present.
Yeah, they can't come, or they don't want to come for some reason. Yeah.
But then how do we connect to the field?
We connect the field is not connecting because the client is sitting in the chair. The field is connecting because we invite the client into the morphogenetic field, and we do that with our client before the workshop.
So okay, let's say you're going to do it 1 hour from now. I mean, the client has given you the consent. So then does the client needs to know? Let's say she stays at her house, then you're doing it at a center. So does she knows that does she has to know that you're going to do it 1 hour from now, so that she gets ready in her own space?
No. She does need to be ready. She does need to be present, not only in her mind. She needs to give you the consent beforehand and ask you to help her and please do a constellation for me. I can't come, or I won't come, but if there's time, I would appreciate if we could constellate my issue, let's say my father issue, and then you agree, And when you have space and time in the constellation, then you say, and then the next constellation is with a client who is not here. And then you leave the chair empty, and you can or cannot explain what it is about for the client. And you can just say, okay, you are representing the client. You ask somebody to do that, and then the others, whatever whatever you want to constellate, whatever clients you need, representatives you need.
Sorry. So we pick someone to represent the client.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We do that anyhow, normally. Even if the client sits there, very rarely they want to represent themselves. But we do give them a choice if you think about it. I mean, if you don't forget it, that's what I want to say. If you don't forget to ask, you would ask the client when you start the constellation, do you want to represent yourself or not? And most often they say, no, I want somebody else. And then, of course, you or the client chooses a representative. So choosing a representative, we talk about that, I think, after the break, is also a whole different topic, which we talk about then later. But yeah, I just want to point out it's totally fine if the client is not in physical there, but he has, of course, to give responded to an invitation to constellate before that. Then, yeah, you cannot constellate for somebody you think they could need. They should have a constellation. Yeah. Because then you are not invited by the family system. You always need this messenger. Without the messenger, no constellation.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Kerstin.
So, is it your experience that this way is being chosen by people who are hesitant to do a family constellation over a certain topic? Or what is, or just
well,
because
most often it's just a sheer distance that they can't come.
Okay, so it's
or
not
they have a colliding event, or they are maybe ill. They can physically not take part. That's more the case.
Okay,
yeah.
So it's not an avoidance of actually
I
being.
know what you want to get at. Okay. No, yeah, that's a different case. If it's avoidance, if like let's put it that way. If they don't feel safe in a group setting, they can do a one-on-one. But some constellations really call out for a representative that you don't want to do with figurine or whatnot, You want, and you think that's the right thing for the client, is to look at it with representatives. But then when you have the workshop, they can't come. That would be a case when you do that. Now, definitely, if they're avoiding to do anything and they think you can fix it for them, then that's not the right place to be. I agree.
How would you find that out? How would you find that one out? Would you get the information then from the field? I assume now.
You would tell your client, come to the workshop. That would be and then you hear what they say. And if you're suspicious that this makes no sense and they could come, but why would they not? Then they have excuses. They are not really seeing to be valid. Then you say, look, you really have to come to a workshop. Otherwise, I can't help you. But if they say, I really want to come to the workshop, but my grandmother is about to die, and that's her last hours maybe, and I just can't leave the hospice. I'm making things up, of course. Something that resonates with you, that you think, no, that's really a good reason.
I don't understand yet. Thank you.
Also, somebody who is disabled and lies in bed or something like that. Okay, so that's the absent client. And then I would like to invite you to experiment during a constellation. Don't be shy to do something that comes to your mind in this moment. And we never talked about that on the training. That's fine. Just try it. We never know until we try it, right? Remember, the whole the whole work of Bert Hellinger is phenomenologically. I hate this word in English. Meaning he has experimented until he found what is the reoccurring theme. What always happens is then what is a rule, and that's exactly what we do. So we are never ending. Like, for example, I have a lot of interesting people reaching out to me in regards of one of the articles I wrote about adoption. And the latest one who reached out had a question and asked, how is it about a sperm donor and an egg donor? And I said, look, this is a really interesting question, but I don't know. I have never had an egg or sperm donor in a family constellation. So would you want to come on a workshop, and then we look at it and then we see, if this is the same as with adoption or if there's something else going on. And that's Bert Hellinger, I don't think he ever had, that was just not common, egg or sperm donors in his times. I don't think I don't know, but I'm not aware of a constellation he had in this topic. So he would be super happy to see what that is about. Yeah. Or this gendering and what else is so common nowadays. Nothing of that is what Bert Hellinger has experienced as a facilitator, and I'm sure he would love to. So we do too. We want to know. There's no preconcept to anything. I don't know whether that is similar to adoptions. Maybe it is. It sounds like it's similar, but I don't know. I can't say until we see. So if you have anything in a constellation that you have never heard of, just experiment. Just see what works. You got the tools in your box. You know how to experiment with words, with gestures, with movements, and see what happens. What if there's a dynamic that you have never seen before. So, oh my gosh, no, we have time because we started 20 minutes later. So now we have an exercise and then we have our break. So this exercise, unfortunately, Janet is not coming through. I don't know why. Did she send me? Let's just quickly look. No, she didn't. Did she send an email? Maybe. Let me check. Well, anyhow, something must have happened there. So this exercise is for 2 people, but I would like you now to go in a group with 3. Makes it easier. And I would like you to exercise to lead the client with everything you have heard here. Not everything, what you remember of it, yeah? So we are 3, you are 1 group. And 1 is the helper, the other is representing a client, and the 3rd is the observer, yeah? Okay, and then you swap. So you have 3 turns, and I count. Please count 3 turns. Everybody gets to go, yeah? Now, what are you here focusing on is practicing waiting in silence as the first step. So let's say Courtney is the client, Kerstin is the facilitator, and Karen is the observer. Yeah. Then Kerstin would ask Courtney, would invite Courtney would ask, do you want to constellate? Yeah. And then Courtney would say, yes, I would like to. And then you would say, okay, come sit next to me here on the right-hand side. Of course, we are imagining that, obviously, right? And then you would sit there, and you would roughly an hour sit there in silence and see what comes up. If there's anything comes up, you can look at your client. You don't need to close your eyes. You can look at your client and see what comes up. One thing I want to say, especially, so Bert Hellinger always asks people to take their glasses off, by the way, yeah? So, not as a facilitator, necessarily, because he wore glasses too, but as a client. Because the facilitator needs to see, but the client, you should be able to see the eyes of the client, yeah? So that's also important. And of course, in the virtual environment, you need that they have light on the face, so you can actually see the facial expression and the eyes. It's very important. So you would say then, okay, then you would sit there waiting and see how you feel about it. That's important. Now, do you feel the urge to do something? Do you feel the urge to ask something? Or do you feel the urge to come to a conclusion and start with the constellation? Just observe that, yeah? Just how that goes for you. If you can relax and be comfortably waiting in silence for a minute, yeah? Then, after roughly a minute, you ask the client about the issue. So Kerstin would ask Connie, so either what is the issue, or without being suggestive, they would ask, if you have picked a clear message from the field, like mother, yeah, you would ask, do you want to talk about your mother? Yeah? But an open question is probably more appropriate as a beginner. Yeah. Okay. And then you lead the conversation with everything you have learned. Yeah? For another minute, not more. You can look at your watch or count the seconds or whatnot, and you just observe and experience for yourself how much are you buying into the story. Is there a story, or is it a genuinely opening of the heart, or is there a drama story or whatnot? Yeah. It is just for you to recognize that. No, it's not for you to do anything. And then you write down or you remember, so we can talk about that later, how would you start the constellation? You're not doing a constellation. You're not even starting to do a constellation. I would like you to find out how you would start this constellation. So you can tell me later, I would have started this constellation by choosing a representative for the client and for the mother. Boom. Or I would have started this, although she was talking about the mother all the time, I had a strong feeling that was drama. I would start this constellation with her mother, and her father to see where it leads us. Yeah? Understood? And then, of course, Karen, as the observer, she's observing all of that, yeah, and learns from it. And then you are swapping roles. So everyone is in the role of the facilitator, the leader. And everyone has 3 minutes. Yeah? So 1 minute in silent, 1 minute to talk, and 1 minute to come to a conclusion what you would do. Connie, what's your question?
So one is the helper. So I think I just missed what when you explained about the helper earlier on. So if I were the helper, because there are 3 of us, so one will be the client, one will be the facilitator, and then
the other is
and then
the
the other
observer.
one. Okay.
Yeah. So you're observing what the others are doing and learning from it. And see if you would make it, and for yourself, just find out if you would make it differently. If you picked up a different information. Or if you would have stopped the client earlier, or would have let them talk for longer. You know, just make this observation. Okay, I'm sure you can do it. It's a very easy exercise. It only sounds complicated. Okay, so Aya, again, you do not facilitate a constellation. You're not starting a constellation. We have no time for that. Yeah? Even if it's so compelling.
No, it's not.
Okay, right. All right. So, and then I see you in 10 minutes.
And Connie, I said to Maya when I came back, I said, oh my goodness, you're a tough taskmaster. Like we had the timer going and we were still like racing.
It's not as easy as we thought. It's
Good.
not easy.
So then you learn something. It would be horrible if it would be easy. Then you don't need me. No, go ahead. So share. Who? So I would like to take one constellation at a time. So let's start with the client. Who was the first client? Connie. Okay.
Yeah,
and who was the
yeah.
facilitator? Kerstin. And Karen was the observer. So All right. So let's see, first of all, from the facilitator, Kerstin, how did you experience this?
Well, the sitting down and the being quiet was, I was very comfortable. I was actually the most comfortable in the whole exercise. Interesting for me was I couldn't get a sense of what the issue is. I had no, I
That's
just
fine.
I couldn't get anything. And then Cornelia said what the issue is.
What was it?
And relationship issue, that she had her last relationship, meaningful relationship 10 years ago. And now she had a crush recently, or a near crush, but she doesn't quite know where this is going. Or so, and then I was already stuck. I wouldn't know what else to like. I wouldn't know what else to say, because for me everything was said. And then it comes to, okay, let's do the constellation. Yeah, choose. So what I would do is choose a representative for yourself, and choose a representative for the last relationship that you had, and that's where I would start.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. Well done. That's as easy as that. And Connie, how was this as a client? How did you felt you were led by Kerstin?
Not really, to be honest. Not really.
Yeah, be honest, of course. Yes.
Yeah.
So how did you feel?
It's very comfortable to sit in silence. I'm in my own space. Yeah, until Karen told us that it's now time to start the conversation.
What was then?
Yeah, I mean, Karen do the timing, then and she told us it's time for you to start the conversation. It's like in trance. Yeah, it's very comfortable. That's her energy, I think.
Yeah. So that's a good leadership then.
I
would call that a good leading.
Though she's not able to
make you comfortable as a client is a good leading.
Yeah, but I can feel comfortable in her energy in that space. I think that's very important. Yeah, because I think it is important to make the client feel comfortable in opening up the issue. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And also remember, when they sit on what we call the hot chair or the hot seat, they won't be comfortable. There would be nervousness and things going on. So it's good if they can be comfortable. If you can make them comfortable with sitting in silence, that was great. Okay, and how was the observation, Karen? Anything you want to add to that?
Not to that one. That was our first one. So we were a little bit just feeling our way and working out the timing and things. I had, in the first part with the observation, for me, I had with Connie, I had lots of rushing around. It didn't feel like it was from you. It felt like it was like mothers further back, but I had a sensation of a lot of going from one thing to another, to another, to another, and quite a kind of hectic pace was what came up for me.
That's interesting, because I had that actually as well. I couldn't settle on anything. It was just, there was constant movement. I couldn't concentrate on anything. I couldn't pick anything. Yeah, that's why I said it didn't give me anything that was out. Nothing stood out.
But it was, because it felt very busy. That's what did stand out, was there was just going from one.
So Karen, how would you have started the constellation? Would that be different?
I would have started it the same way, I believe, as Kirsten. And then I had a feeling that we were going to go back into the mother's line, but I may not have started it there. I would have started it where Kirsten did and how she did, with waiting for that to unfold later on was probably would be most likely how I would start it. Yeah, I may have gone directly into asking questions on the mother's side or the grandmother's side, but I might have just started the way Kirsten did and expected that that sooner or later that grandmother line will come in.
Very good.
Yeah.
But this now is getting, I think, no, because did we not just say before that we shouldn't anticipate anything or that we shouldn't assume anything, that we actually
Yeah. No, but Karen was sharing that she saw this busyness is coming from the mother's line. Right?
Yeah, okay.
Karen, or not?
Yeah. So I trusted that, well, hopefully trusted Kirsten.
Yeah,
that to mean that, from the morphogenic field, I'm getting information from the field, and that will unravel as we continue on. And maybe if I was more experienced, I may go with it straight away and have more tools to bring that out straight away. But at the moment, I probably go and like, I need more proof, give me a little bit more.
Yeah,
sort of a scenario.
Of course.
Okay. So this busyness, and then you feel that these things rushing from here one place to another. I think I told you I had this new crush. It's just that I can't stop thinking about this person. I'm just compartmentalizing. Whenever I attended the course or I'm working, I try to pay attention. But at the back of my mind, I have this person is haunting me. I think it's probably that's the reason you Kirsten cannot pick up anything from me.
Yeah.
No, I'm not as fast following what's going on. I can't chase you all the way.
Well, to be honest, without going into greater details, but if you have sensation of busyness, this is normally mind activity anyhow.
It's normally what?
Busyness.
Mind activity.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Right. That's normally what we pick up when we think of busyness. We're not thinking of a rush hour in Tokyo. Or something.
Yeah. Just that I'm a little bit preoccupied with this person. That's the thing. Cool.
Very good. So the next one was
Karen.
I was the client, and Connie was the facilitator, and Kirsten was the observer.
Okay. So Connie, from your perspective, how was this experience for you, this exercise as a facilitator?
Again, I feel very comfortable when we sit in silence. What I feel is that I can't pick up the issue. Apparently, Karen would like to work on relationship issue, but it's just that I can feel that she's at peace. There is a little bit of joy. There's no glimpse of upset or sadness. So then I asked her what would she like to work on. She would like to work on a relationship. She wants to know how can she detach from her ex-husband. Yeah, and then the second minute ended. So then we discussed a little bit on how are we going to start the constellation.
You discussed it. What does that mean?
A bit.
You talked about how to start the constellation?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you wouldn't do that with your client, do you? Wouldn't you?
No, but because you said.
We thought it's part of the exercise.
You decide how to start.
You lead, Connie, as opposed to discussing, and I think you did end up leading because what did you decide? What did you decide that how you would start the constellation?
Yeah. So I think I would have chosen a representative to represent Karen's attachment to her ex-husband. Yeah. So of course, one to represent herself, and then we will see how's her emotion towards the attachment of her ex-husband. This attachment is, I think, this is the issue that we have in a lot of relationships. I think I was the one who raised it up last time. Yeah. So that is how I would. Yeah.
as opposed
how
to
I would
just
start,
putting
yeah.
her ex-husband and her there, right?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll see how things unfold before
Yeah.
we decide to add more representatives. For example, her ex-husband.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. And who was so as a client perspective, how was that for you, Karen?
Yeah, I thought I liked that actually. I was quite happy and actually a little bit relieved that we were going to have my attachment there versus, you know, the object or my perceived object. I thought that was a nice way to go about it and it felt right.
Good. Then very well done, Connie. And then the observer,
Thank you.
Kerstin, anything to add? What did you perceive? Would you have done it differently?
No, I found the observation part this time. I have to say I found it a little bit hard. It's the timekeeper as well. What I found interesting though was that you two guys picked the subject together with partners and ex-partners, and then Cornelia's choice of the representative for you, Karen, and then a representative for the detachment or for the attachment to your ex-husband. I found that really like, whoa, that's I wouldn't have thought about it. So you had, for me, that this is like you have a very intuitive guidance, like you guided it really well then, or led it in really well. I wouldn't have, I don't think I could have come to this conclusion or this solution or choosing a representative for the attachment. Brilliant. And when you said it, I thought, yeah, that's it. That's it.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Sounds all good to me. Who was then the third one?
The third one, yes.
I was the client.
I was the facilitator.
Okay. So facilitator, Karen, how was that for you?
I enjoyed it. I had the I guess the privilege of going last as facilitator, so we kind of were already knowing what we were doing by then. Worked out a few kinks along the way. I enjoyed when we had our minute silence. I wasn't interested within that minute silence because I had physical sensations arising that I checked in with Kirsten and Kirsten didn't have those. So I wonder what that.
What physical was it? What sensations?
I had sort of pain down my lower shoulders, sort of around here, and also almost a sensation of if I was going to walk, there'd be a slight limp, but I didn't say that in it. But the sort of slight physical impairment. And
on your left side.
Yes, on my left side.
That's the best part.
Really hard. I don't ever ring there anymore. It's very hard.
Okay, yeah. So left shoulder, left leg, left limb.
I don't know that it was the left leg. It might have been the right leg. I just had a sensation of pain on the left shoulder, and almost this idea that if I was going to walk, there'd be a slight limp or stiffness. But that wasn't part of Kirsten's experience at all. So I thought that was interesting. I was interested to see what's that about, Maya.
Well, I wasn't there, so I cannot tell. But let us hear from Kirsten what how she felt. Oh no, you're not finished yet, Karen. So what did you? So the silence was okay. The sensation was quite unsure, and then the conversation. You're interviewing the client. How was that?
That was okay. That was easy. I just asked Kirsten what was, it was easy because it could be led by Kirsten. I sort of said, what was the issue that you've come in here today that you'd like to work with? And Kirsten just said, my anger. I'm feeling anger, a feeling of anger. And it kind of went for a little bit of silence, and Kirsten didn't offer more. And I actually didn't feel the need to ask more. I gave it a space of silence, and I don't know whether Kirsten would have liked me to ask more. That would be good feedback, Kirsten. But at the time, I just felt that She didn't offer it, and she's given me what it is, so we've got enough to go on, and we can get started from here. And so then
how would you start then?
So I asked Kirsten for a representative for herself, to choose a representative for herself, to choose a representative for her anger. Thank you, Tony. You let us into that one. But also I asked for a third representative as well. And I wasn't at this stage sure what the third representative was, but I just felt I wanted to have a third person up on the floor.
Yeah.
And that's where we got to.
Okay, that's good, and that's also interesting. I think you are totally right, because don't dismiss the sensations you have. They come from the field. This is so we all start off with, oh, that's just me, but if you don't have a shoulder injury the whole time that bothers you from day and night, and if you don't limp during the day, then you know that is from the field. I mean, nobody can make this up. You know, you can't make this up. So what I get without being there, and I of course this is just a guess, is that in a constellation, so when you have a third person, for example, and remember left side is mother line, yeah, maternal line. So you, without telling your client, you could use the third person as the sensation. Yeah? Or when you have a specific thing going on in one side, there's often a person missing. So you would place this missing person as a third person. Yeah? Or something like that. So you would definitely incorporate that into the constellation, even if the client says, no, I don't have shoulder pain and I'm not having a limp. That's fine. It doesn't mean that you pick it up from the client. You just pick it up from the field. Right?
Okay, thank you.
So by putting in the third person, you had already the right instinct to have this representative in there for practically this unexplained sensation. Okay, Kerstin, so how was that for you as a client?
Yeah, it was good. I felt comfortable. This minute is very comfortable. And then, yeah, I just said what the issue is. I actually had to find my issue with a little bit of searching what is surfacing at the end, the main biggest thing. So that was the anger, and I think I've said everything. I'm angry, you know, I'm just angry, and I have pointers for myself, but that's not important to you. You don't need to know that. And because I know the pointers outside are not what is going on, so I'm angry. End of story.
Good, fantastic. Yeah, I mean that's a model client, of course, to nail it down to one emotion. These are also the clients where they don't need to say anything, because if you put up a representative for them, they will show the anger.
Good luck with those then.
Eh?
Good luck with those then, Karen, because I'm bloody furious at the moment.
Very good, very good. Something's moving. And Connie, how was this observing this exercise? Did you
it was a pleasant
insight?
experience. Yeah, it's again very comfortable. But I can't pick up any information from the field. I don't sense any anger from Christine, to be honest.
Yeah.
So Maya, just one question. So if we are doing a constellation section, if we are sitting together with the client, and if we don't pick up anything from the client, what do we do?
We go through that in troubleshooting, but remember, you can always ask what they want to constellate.
Okay.
You know, and when they say, like I give you in the example with the fire, I don't want to constellate anything, I'm just sitting here because nobody else is sitting here. Then we talk about that, I think, in the next half or tomorrow, what to do then.
But you, yes, she doesn't want to do a section with you, but you picked it up. So now if we can't pick up anything from the field, how?
The thing is, Connie, you were only the observer, you know? You are not,
Yeah.
in that respect,
Yeah.
you shouldn't not worry, but just accept it. You were the observer, what you saw. You don't necessarily have to pick anything up from what is going on. I didn't pick up anything either.
Yeah,
But
exactly. And
observing,
it is not the point. It is not the point to be able to pick things up, and that makes a good facilitator. That's not true. What you learn in this course enables you, without picking anything up, to facilitate very solid constellations, just by going with the orders of love. And then you will pick up things as you pick up things as a representative. When you're in a workshop, you pick up things. Right? That's not strangeness. It just happens, and that's the same to the facilitator. It just happens. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We have our break. So now we are talking about leading the group. We talked the whole time together today about leading the client. Obviously, in a workshop setting, you have a group, and you cannot only focus on the client. The group is always there, and it's from utmost importance, the group as well, right? So you always have the group and your client in your view. So CAI is an acronym that I have created so you can memorize it easier, because you think of CIA and then you say, no, it's not CIA, it's CIAI actually. And as you might know by now, I'm a big dog fan. I have 5 dogs of my own. I'm fostering dogs. I'm rehoming, X-racing greyhounds, and they have a special place in my heart. And I learned a lot from my dogs. For example, I learned that a group needs a pack leader. And I would like you, even if you have nothing to do with dogs, to remember that. Think of the group of wolves or dogs, and they are lost without a leader, which we call the pack leader. And that is exactly how your group feels if you are not leading. Yeah, they feel lost. Okay. So what has a pack leader? I was just observing my dogs, and I have a pack leader. I have an alpha dog, and here's what my conclusion is. The trust of the pack, they need so a leader has the ability to have the trust of the pack to do the right decision. Yeah? That means, on the other hand, the leader needs to be confident, but not arrogant, right? Just let that sink in. Secondly, the pack leader has the oversight to step in when the pack needs order. Other than they don't need to step in. But when the pack needs order, they know exactly, just before it's too late, just before they start to fight, they know, now I have to step in. That means be assertive and not aggressive or dismissive. And then third, the leader has the strength to lead through unknown terrain. When nobody knows what's going on, the leader knows where to go. Yeah? And that means to be in charge. So everybody is following you, even if they don't know where it leads. Yeah? And that comes through body language mainly, right? So this makes CAI. Confident, assertive, in charge. Remember that. When I wake you up in the night, you are fast asleep, and I ask you, what needs a pack leader? Then you have to shout at me, CAI. And then hopefully you remember what it stands for. Yeah. So confident, assertive, and in charge. Right? So let's look at the group dynamics. Groups are prone to discussions. Yeah? They find an interesting topic, something you said, the client said, or they have said, and then they want to discuss it. Right? So How would you go about discussions? Well, you know it's not going to happen, of course. Why is it not going to happen? Because you're losing your leadership when you open up the room to discussions. Yeah? It is very important that you stay the pack leader and say, no discussions, follow me. Yeah, follow me. There is no question asked. The second one is comments towards another participant. That's a biggie. This is such an overreach if anybody does this, but they mean it well. You know? They mean it well. And then, but the damage is already done when they do it. Therefore, I highly recommend that you put a couple of rules up before the workshop starts. And one would be that nobody is commenting towards another participant about what they have shared. Yeah. So, for example, one is saying, let's say one is asking a question. In this constellation, blah, 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 because I have like the same issue, I have this partner issue, and and I really can't go out of this, let's say, attachment, what we just talked about. Then a comment from another participant would be that somebody from the group said, I know how you feel, I have the same. Yeah? That's a comment towards another participant. And they mean it well, and it's not even negative. It's also the positive comments. What are they doing? They are overreaching, and they are becoming like they are kind of piercing into the bubble of the other participant, yeah, and making their problem their own. They can share. They can say to the facilitator, they can raise their hand and say, I have something to say. And then the facilitator would say, yes, please, what is it? And then they would say to the facilitator, I have also this problem. That's a completely different thing. Yeah? They are not talking to another participant. They are talking to you. And then you can decide if you want to discuss it or not with this person, right? But you cannot allow them to bypass you and talk to each other. And that's outside of a constellation. I'm talking about the participants that are sitting in a circle around, yeah? Okay. So comments, of course, when they are negative, that's even when somebody's commenting and said, you shouldn't have said that in the constellation. That was really rude, or that was inappropriate, or that was wrong. Yeah, that's even worse, of course, right? But I just made an example of a positive comment so you know even that is an overreach. Yeah. So think of every participant as having their bubble, right? Like their bubble, they have or their worries in there, and their happiness, and their traumas, and their needs, and their hopes, and everything, yeah. And you want them to keep this bubble intact unless you work with them. That is the only situation where you are bursting the bubble, so they can actually let go and release. Nobody else is allowed to do that. Yeah, be aware of that. And as I said, good point to say at the beginning of the workshop, and you can write it down and hang it somewhere on a laminated piece of paper. The 10 rules of my workshop are, and then don't comment towards another participant about what they have shared. That would be one, and then there's a few more coming. What is if a participant wants to help another participant? For example, in, let's say, in a constellation, or even sitting down as a group, and somebody is sharing something and burst into tears, very emotional about it. How often is somebody sitting next to them, they want to put their arm around this person, or get up and cross the room and hug them? Yeah. What do you think about that? Isn't that nice? To have some comfort?
No.
After what you've
Well,
said,
it is.
when, oh,
Sorry,
you
you
go,
go,
Kirsten.
You go first.
Well, it is. You would say it is nice, but it takes away. It takes away their need to come to a conclusion that the participant themselves needs to feel his stuff, and it would be taken away from him in a way. That's
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. And what would you say, Karen?
I was just really just supporting what you said before about people being in their own bubbles.
Yeah.
So we allow them to stay there. It's just as simple as that, and let them remain in their space and do what they need to do in there.
Absolutely, because it's also bursting the bubble if you mean it well and you want to put the arm around them, yeah, and give them a hug, yeah. And the third thing is, it is just in Coiny, do you have something else? There's a third thing.
I think if we do that, it's going to disturb the flow.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's true. That is similar to what Kirsten said. And the third thing is, it just shows the neediness of the one who's overreaching. He or she is the one who needs a hug. Not the other. Right. So all good comments, and that's exactly why we don't want to burst the bubble, and it's very important that they go through this stuff undisturbed. The only exemption I would do, or I have ever done, as far as I can remember, is when a couple comes. A couple comes together, they were sitting together, they were even sitting together on a kind of a bench seat, like a love seat, something like that. And then one is very distressed and in tears, and then the partner was comforting them. Then I don't, they come as a they come as a couple, and they go through this together, and might as well do this because they always do. You don't want to be by the rules, even if it's doesn't seem to be inappropriate, because they have kind of a mutual bubble, if you will. They have like this couple bubble, and just let them do what couples do. I mean, I wouldn't, but definitely not a participant who doesn't know each other, or even if they are friends and they know each other, but they are not necessarily intimate with each other, then you wouldn't allow that. Kerstin, what was it?
Yeah, because recently in a workshop, a situation like that came up, and so the representatives were already chosen. The client was sitting there, and I was in the circle, not part of the constellation, but I had this really strong urge, and it was not going away. Even I knew I was not supposed to go there, that I had to get up off my seat and sit myself beside the client.
Mm-hmm.
I knew this is not what I meant to do, yeah. But I felt I was part of the constellation in one way, and I was sitting there, and then all of a sudden I could go. I knew now I can go back. I can leave the side of this client.
So you were sitting next to the client.
I was just because she was moving to a place where she could see what the constellation looked like. And so I was just sitting beside her. But I really felt this urge, even I knew this is not normal, this is not the way to go, and I have not had it in any other times, but this time, and it was really coming. I need to go there. I need to sit there.
But it was, as you said, you say already everything you needed. It was your need. So in this constellation, something was triggering in you that made this movement, right? That's fine as long as you don't touch or talk to the participant and leave them in their bubble. Just by shifting seats, I wouldn't mind that too much. This is not really bursting the bubble, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
But I could just say that it's what like as I was told that this is where I had to go. It was not my need. I didn't feel it.
You said that 3 times. I go with that,
yeah.
Kerstin.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's good. All good. Thank you.
Karen.
Would it have been helpful for Kirsten at that time to ask the facilitator to say I feel like I'd like to be near the client?
That's a slippery slope, because in this, what Kirsten just explained, the facilitator was busy facilitating.
Oh, sorry. No, I did miss that part. Sorry,
Yeah.
Kirsten. Yeah, so then you'd
So
be interrupting.
you don't want to really, it needs to be, I don't know. I personally don't like that if participants say, I feel this, I feel this, I feel that, you know, because they haven't been chosen as representatives. So I mean, as I always say, also the observer are part of the constellation, but they are not the active part of the constellation. Yeah?
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Okay, so we talked about couples and friends and hugs, so that was kind of the exemption that I found was totally okay. Group dynamics, distractions. So this happens a lot. So just think about it. There's a constellation going on, and one of the group who's sitting in the circle is coughing like vigorously all the time. So everybody's looking. You know, everybody can't help but look there. These are the kind. So how do we deal with that? Because it does distract the group, and it will actually create a group dynamic, right? So the way, that's just an example, could be anything really. Somebody's just maybe getting up and changing seats, or then but just catching the attention, right? So these distractions, obviously, as always, when something comes from outside of the ones who are constellating, they are also connected to the field, and something is triggering them. Something is triggering them, and you look at this person as if that would be a separate constellation. Like as if, you know, you have two constellations going on. One is a constellation that you're facilitating, and the other is a constellation with this guy or girl who's doing these distractions, right? So in your mind, it's more like a mental, or not mental, what am I saying? More an energetic thing. You would realize that. You wouldn't dismiss it as something that has nothing to do with it. You would realize it. You would either send this person out of the room if it's really distracting the group and say, come back when we are finished, yeah? Or you would notice that, and you would do the next constellation with him or her, yeah? Because there is a message from the field, yeah? Different to a distraction when somebody is like aggressive or something like that. Like, I actually never had that. It's probably very theoretical. So it's more that they have sensations like mostly coughing, or they can't stop coughing, or laughing. I had somebody who burst into laughter and couldn't stop laughing, which is, of course, very serious. You know, never take laugh in a constellation for something funny or happiness. That's the opposite. Definitely the opposite. But, you know, you deal with that. If you can continue with your constellation, you just observe that. You take it into consideration that that's another constellation just happening over there. And when your constellation is concluded and this is still going on, then you take this person and constellate. For example, the coughing. And it can be a quick one. It doesn't need to be a long one. It can be a quick one. Just put there yourself and the coughing.
How would you do that, Maya? How would you go about to say, and like, how would you get this person that was coughing, for example, and distracting? How would you get them in the hot seat? How would you?
I would say, look, come here and constellate. If you don't want, you have to leave the room because this is very distractive.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is just coughing. It's just an example. It could be laughing, or could be scratching with the feet, or the seat goes back and forth, and all sorts of things can happen. So what is also part of a group dynamic? What happens if the group turns against a participant or against you as a facilitator? So remember what the group stands for and what the facilitator stands for?
Parents and kids.
The group is?
The kid.
The group stands for whom?
The kids.
The mother.
or for the mother.
And
Okay.
the father and the facilitator stands for the father.
Oh.
So if a participant turns against the group, I don't want to be here, you are horrible to me, I don't know, just to make something up. Yeah, I actually have that witnessed once in a workshop with Sophie Hellinger. Turns and says, you are so rude, whatever, any kind of blame, you just see his mother there. And if you have a value reason and the space, you would constellate him in this example with himself or a representative and his mother. If he turns, if so hang on, I'm lost here. I'm thinking about somebody turns against the group. No, sorry, I was on the wrong track. Rewind. The group turns against the participant, meaning for some reason the group dynamic has taken over, and the facilitant, maybe the one who was destructive or so, is doing whatever they do and it's annoying, and then the group says, can you just stop that, and you have to leave, and blah, blah, blah. That is simply because the pack leader is gone, right? The group only takes over when the pack leader is not present. But this is you. So you just have to pull the reins back to you in this case. So that was different from what I said before, Kerstin. Forget about that. Different situation. And then you take back the reins again, and you go back into your leadership place, and you say, you all stop talking here, sit back, go on your chair, right? We are now making an exercise, a guided meditation, or we continue with our constellation, whatever you want to do. Yeah, that's all you need to do. As earlier you catch it, as better, of course, right? Now, what is if the group turns against you, right? For some reason, I don't think I've ever experienced that, but I just want to point that out. So what would you do? Any suggestions? I have a weird one, but bear with me. I would go out of the room. If the group turns against me, I would just get up on my seat and leave. I can't facilitate anymore. They don't want me to lead, so I leave. And they will be very sorry for themselves because they had all this effort and money spent, and now the facilitator is not there, right?
What would it look like? What would it look like that the group is going against you?
I have never experienced it. I just wanted to round that up. I have no idea. I'm just making things up. Maybe that the group, maybe it's a small group, and they maybe all know each other, and one has facilitated, and they think you did it wrong.
Okay.
Or they think you didn't listen to what they say, and then they did something else, and then that does nothing, and I don't know. I'm making things up. So if that is like, if the group is kind of, like that, then I would just say, okay, I'm leaving the room. If you want me back to facilitate, I cannot facilitate like this. If you want me back to facilitate, I come. If not, then this is over. Easy. Yeah. If you have other ideas, and if you ever experience anything like this, please do share, because I haven't yet. But well, everything is possible. So I just want to mention it. And the other thing, just to not to confuse anybody, I was in my mind, I was that a participant turns against the group, then it's the mother, or a participant turns against the facilitator, then it's a father issue, most likely. So that's what you look at then. So now we're talking about leading the representatives. Of course, that's different. We had the client, then we had the group as a whole, and now we have the representatives as individuals. So we also need to lead them. The best leadership is to prepare the representative of what is coming, with your rules, with your set of rules that you might have, or in the introduction to the workshop, you say, especially if they haven't done it before, as a representative, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to try hard for anything. You only need to relax and just share with me exactly that when I ask you a question, just answer these questions just in this moment. That's all you need to do. And that's one thing. The second thing is you would prepare the representatives to not talk without being asked. Yeah, so there's not kind of these conversations going on in a constellation. So if they have something to say, they have to raise their hand, and then you would go to the representative, and they would probably whisper in your ear what they want to say, and then you would say, okay, say it, or most likely you would say, don't say it. Most likely you would say, that's an information for you. Or the third option is you would say something else instead, and you would translate it into one of our stronger sentences of resolution or words, right? So they are only communicating with you. That's a rule. Okay, so that's one. The other thing. Let me think. Was there something else prepared? Is anything coming to you? What a representative needs to know? Of course, the question always comes, oh, how do I know it comes from the field or is it me? And you say, I don't care. If I ask you in this second, how do you feel, and you feel something, you say, I feel that and that. And don't worry about it if it's you or the field. I will, decide that. And it's always the field. So you just reassure them that cannot go wrong. And if they see I feel nothing, then it's exactly what they need. Right? And most of them who have the first time represented and they feel nothing, they are embarrassed because they think, especially men, they think they're a failure if they don't feel anything. But I tell you something from my practice, which is hopefully when it sticks with you, you will never fall into this pitfall, into this hole. I had a constellation also with mostly new ones, and there was this man who was obviously accompanying his partner or a friend, so was kind of there like, why am I even here situation. And so as it turned out, he was asked to represent. So he got up and he stood there, and then I asked him after a few minutes when it was his turn, how do you feel? And he was looking around like this, and I said, I feel nothing. I feel nothing. And then I said, okay, that's fine. And then more representatives came, and I asked again, how do you feel now? He said, nothing. I feel nothing. And he was so embarrassed. He really wanted to go. He doesn't want to be there. He felt like a failure. And then the other representatives, all chosen, all men, by the way, I asked them, how do you feel? And they said, guess what? Nothing. And that was, I think, at least 5 generations of men. They were totally detached from their emotions until we found the healing, the one where we could work with and let the love flow again. And it was quite a long, I remember it was quite a long constellation, maybe over half an hour, or unusually long. And then, when we went through the healing, and then we came to this representative who felt nothing, and the healing came to him, a tear ran down his cheek. Imagine that. So there was this relief of emotion. And obviously I didn't need to, but I asked, especially for the ones observing, as how do you feel now? And he said, I don't know why, but I feel sad. So here you go. So the whole constellation was about men in multiple generations completely cut off their emotions and felt nothing. They would have felt nothing towards a partner, nothing towards their parents. They would have felt nothing towards their children. They were just like this. This was actually so he was chosen to feel nothing because that was the constellation, right? So always reassure yourself that is the gift of the morphogenetic field. Don't resist that. It is what it is, and it is exactly right. Yeah. If somebody with this sadness would have been important to start with, another representative would have been chosen. who could express sadness right away. So that's just what it is. The next question you have when you're leading the representatives is, well, it's actually a question towards the client, but you can decide that also for the client. You don't need to ask, does the client need a representative or not? It's a choice. You can do the choice for them, or they can do the choice. Whatever you feel it's right. However, it is very healing, especially in interrupted movements, that the client comes into the role at one stage. Especially in a physical workshop, not so much in a virtual one, but in a physical workshop, it's very important that they actually can do the hugging themselves, yeah, and not through the representatives. So that's just in the back of your mind, not to forget. Then leading the representatives, there's another question, do we guide them in position or not? So meaning, do you as a facilitator or the client puts a hand on the shoulders, on the back, and gently moves the person around the room and turns them around until they feel that's a good spot. That's what we say guiding in position. Or do we just say to the representative, okay, now find your space in the room? I think it's really helpful when you start facilitating to let them guide. This is also how Bert Hellinger started. And it's kind of part of the old family constellation, to let them guide each representative in a position. It's good for the client. He's connected with the field. He can connect with the representatives. He has a feeling he's doing something, yeah? And it gives you a good insight of how the client sees the situation. And then when the client sits down, you would ask the representative if they feel on the right spot or if they like to move. And you will see most often they would like to move because the client has placed them. You know how he perceives them in real life because he doesn't know the soul movement so much. So I think it's a good idea. It makes the constellation longer. However, when you are beginning, your constellations will be longer anyhow. So count that in and take that as a good exercise to find out what clients perceive and what the real movement of the soul is. It's always different. Then you would lead the representative once they have been put in place by asking them maybe to close their eyes briefly and become, empty or just relax. Relax the shoulder. Just relax and breathe normal and relax your hands down. A lot of people having their hands in their pockets or behind the back, clenched or something like that, or interlaced or clenched or something like that. Just say, relax, hands alongside the side, fingers are loose, everything relaxed, and then breathe maybe a deep breath or something like that, and then open your eyes. Yeah, and then you would say, make sure when you open your eyes, you stay focused and collected. What does that mean? That means that when they open the eyes and they see the body that they have been drinking all their life with after hours, and now they see them representing a woman in the constellation, yeah, that he's not immediately giggling at his body because he's in such a weird situation with him all of a sudden, yeah. Which would be, the giggling would be kind of covering, camouflaging an embarrassment he feels for himself to be there. So by saying stay focused on collected, you also can say don't look at anybody in the room when you open your eyes. That is minimizing, this incidence that they are open their eyes and they are shocked to see somebody they know in a different role. But then, of course, after a few seconds, they should tell you where they want to look or where they are drawn to and how they would position themselves. So this moment to collect is really important. So don't rush it. Once every representative is put up, take this moment and allow them to focus. Yeah. If they don't want to open their eyes again, that's a tricky one. they definitely have to. You cannot work with somebody who has the eyes closed. Only exception is they lay down on their back and have their eyes closed. That means they are just representing somebody who is dead, and because if they don't want to open their eyes, that also means that they know that they are dead, and that they are most likely in agreement with that. So no resistance towards that. Oh yeah, I said that. Don't ask them to not to look at each other at the beginning. Again, repeat before every constellation your rule to never talk to each other in a constellation. Only talk to you as a facilitator, and only when you ask them to. So you say, raise your hand if you think you want to say something, and then we go through that, what we talked about. We talked a little bit about giggling and chatting and laughing and whatever that is. This is, you can deal with it as a distraction, but if it's in a constellation, it is always camouflaging something serious underlying. So it's interesting, so you observe that, right? And then you ask them to come back and be collected and focused. But in the back of your mind, you remember that, because it might be an important information from the field later on. And then changing the positions. So let's assume the client has put the representatives or led the representatives in a certain position. And then you say to the representatives, now find, are you happy there, or do you want to go somewhere else? And then they move themselves. Maybe one or two or all of them, they find their own position. So in the back of your mind, see, facilitating is all about observation. In the back of your mind, you know how the client put them, then how they decided where they want to move to, and then the third step is that you change the position for them. Now, you need to do that carefully, yeah, because to change the position for a representative means that you are interfering with their soul movement, obviously. And you don't want to do that, because, again, you want to observe how the souls want to move, and you don't want to oppose your opinion how they're supposed to move on them. However, there are valid reasons to change the position of a representative. For example, if a representative looks away from somebody, yeah, this is an act of avoidance, obviously, yeah. So you can suggest to the representative to turn around and look at a specific other representative and see how the reaction is. But only if you are guided to do so, yeah? You can also suggest to the representative to walk in the direction they are looking. Because sometimes they are looking away from everybody because they really don't want to be there as a soul, as a family member of the family system, and as a soul movement, they are drawn away, and that's fine. So it's just acknowledging what is. They can do that. So you would encourage them to go where they look at. So say, just take a couple of steps towards the direction you're looking. And then you ask again, how do you feel there? Is it right to go there, or do you want to go back, or do you want to turn around? So you check in with them. So I repeat, they either go in the direction they're looking, or you suggest them to do that, or you suggest they turn around and look at somebody where you think, because the information came from the field, that they are avoiding to look at this, often a victim. Yeah. And if they say that doesn't feel right, then not. You remember, no pressure. If they say that doesn't feel right, then not. Then you start somewhere else. Yeah. So why would we want to change the position? Is because there is no other dynamic present at the moment. Yeah. If you have a constellation, let's make it easy. With two people, one is a client representing the client, and the other one is a representative, and they are looking away. You have only two options. Yeah, because there's nothing else to work with. You have only these two, right? And of course, you cannot work with them if they are not looking at each other, or at least one is looking at the other, right? So if your representative is looking away, again, you have these two choices. You ask them to follow the direction they are looking, so they are taking some steps further away, or to turn around and look at the client's representative and see what comes up, because it was probably avoidance. And of course, this can happen in a larger group as well when you have more than two representatives. Or leading the representatives is also when the client wants to change the position of the representatives. Now, this is an interesting thing. So just imagine the client has or has not placed the representatives, whatever you decide to do. The representatives find their spaces, and then the client gets up and says, I want my mother to be next to my father, although she's miles away, right? So don't forget, the client cannot lead the representatives. That is not his role. Yeah. And you would just take note that this desire is in the client to have their parents together, which is obviously not what the souls represent, or the representatives, the people represent as a soul movement. So you just take note of what your client says to you, but you don't allow them to do that, of course, right? That is too late. He can place them at the beginning, but that's over then. The rest is going to the field. And don't forget, the client is the least connected to the morphogenetic field, because he's in this pain or suffering or something ego mind driven, yeah, and has conceptions about where is it coming from, what's about to happen, right? While all the representatives will be connected with the field, you will be connected with the field. The client is the least one to be connected to the field. So he definitely doesn't have to say anything, right? Other than all of a sudden, and that happens quite a lot, the client says, oh my gosh, now I remember the story of my great-grandfather, and that he came from a foreign land and he had nothing, and all of a sudden the family was rich. And then this is an information from the field, of course. Because if he hasn't revealed something to the constellation and all of a sudden he's got this information, that is valid information from the field. But that still doesn't allow the client to change the position of the representative, of course. What happens if the representative wants to change their position? As we just talked, fine, eh? That's normally a soul movement. So you allow that, but slowly. If there's a rush, then it's not coming from the field, it's from the mind. Then the representative have their own emotions triggered by the representation. So you would ask them, you can move, but very, very slowly. And that could be also a rule that you set at the beginning of the workshop. As a representative, all movements need to be very slow motion, no rush. Yeah. And so you call them back if they rush somewhere. And you say, come back to your position and take one step at a time and check in, where do you want to go? Where's the right place to stay? Kerstin.
So you would still go with the rule to say that they have to raise their hand and say, look, I would like to change my position,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not
doing it out of themselves. They still have to wait until they talk to you, and then
Absolutely. That from the simple reason that would slow them down already if you don't allow them to just change their position. And so what you can observe with a good facilitator, he would suggest, okay, you see what happens if you go there, and then they would go there. Now if they rush there, you would call them back and say, come back to this position and take one step, and see how that is. Does it feel better or not so good? You know, and then okay, if it's better to another. So you're leading the representative, right? So that's the important part. Lead the representatives. But always take what they convey as a movement of as an information from the morphogenetic field. Yeah, there's always something in there. So again, observation is key. And the good thing is, yes, there are lots of information in this constellation, but you can forget them the second the constellation is over. So you don't need any brain space for that. It's only for the moment. Short memory. And there's a lot you can put in your short memory. And you only need to remember it in this constellation, not later. So that's good news, I would say. We talked about that. The facilitator definitely can change the position of the representative, but not make them go somewhere where, you know, the facilitator thinks, oh, well, the parents should go together, so parents should always be two. Or let's say the father should always be on the right side of the mother, like something, you know, that you think you have learned. And now the father's on the left side of the mother. And you would ask then the father, you go on the other side of the mother. That is not correct. The observation that the father is placed or wants to be at the left side of the mother is already giving you information that there's an imbalance. However, if you are not sure, then you can say, okay, I suggest you try how it feels if you go to the other side of this person. And then they do that. And then they say, that doesn't feel better. Then, okay, come back. When they say, hey, that feels actually much better, I really like it here, then you know, aha, they just haven't really moved yet. So you just take this movement, if you will, a little bit ahead of time. That's all. So that will be okay. So this feedback is super important. This is also why I ask in each practice workshop, when you suggest a movement or a word or a gesture, ask if it's true. You need to know that. That's how you learn. So, what else do we have? So, let's briefly talk about changing the words. That is, you always want the shortest way to express what the representative suggests to say. Always the shortest version. And you can actually train that outside of a workshop. You can read lines on the internet or on Google or whatnot and see what is actually in this sentence. How can that be expressed in one word? Yeah, or in 3, or in 5 max. And this is how you train. How to train that? Yeah. And you can break everything down that the representative wants to say into one of our 3 strong words. It's either always a yes, acknowledging what is, a please to connect, or a thank you to let go. And then, you know, it's also easier for you to work with that. Yeah, of course, you change the same with the client. If a representative wants to go on and on and on, even if you ask them to tell you what they want to say, then they come stories, you just stop them. Yeah, just stop them. There is nothing in there if they start to. If it would be important, they would say, I'm sad, I'm angry, I feel drawn to this, I feel repelled from them. That's all they would say, yeah? Everything else is not important. Not important. Change slang words into words of power. Yeah, because the representative, they are not versed in what we're doing. They don't know about the powerful words. They would say maybe a swear word. Yeah, they are angry, but they don't say I'm angry. They would say, oh, fuck you. Yeah. And then definitely you can't allow that to happen because this has no impact. Like this is not igniting any soul movement. Yeah. So you would then say, okay, stop here. Say, I'm angry at you. And see how that works. Yeah. So it's just in this example. What else? If you change the words, also consider the body language that often gives more away than what they say. So, for example, if somebody's clenching the fist and looks at somebody, and you ask them what they want to say, and they want to say, I really like this person. I would like to say, I like you, I love you. And they have a clenched fist. Then you just observe the fist, and instead of allow him to say that, you say, no, you say, I hate you, or I'm angry at you is better. I'm angry at you. And then they would say, I'm angry at you. Why would I say that? I'm angry at you? And then they would say, oh, that really feels good. I'm really angry. When, of course you know that, because they were clenching a fist, right? So body language is more important as what they want to say. Again, observation. Body observation is key. Yeah, as I said, be assured everything that needs to be said in every situation can either be a please, a thank you, or a yes. So there is no need to get lost. Yeah? It's not more complicated than this. Okay, traps to fall into. We have talked about a little of that. So the client takes over the lead. Obviously, that happens at the beginning. You want to be nice. You want to, make your client feel comfortable, and they might find that as an invitation to take over the lead. You just take it back and you say to him, okay, that's enough, whatever they say. Or if they move around, you say, come sit here. You just gently, just friendly, and even if you don't, you just feel the client takes over the lead, but they don't do anything in specific that you can nail it down to. Just be ahead of time and ahead of things, and just tell him, okay, come here, sit here on this chair, just to make sure you are leading him again. Leading literally. Tell him what to do. Yeah, literally leading. The group takes over the lead. Well, we have that. We discussed that before. This is a good learning example, if that ever happens, that you allow the group to develop some group dynamics here. So you have to actually learn from this, that you have to lead the group earlier. There would be a tipping point when this happens. So this is what you learn from, but you take over the lead, getting everybody up, and lead everybody by making an exercise that everybody needs to participate in. For example, a mother exercise. So groups of two, one is the mother, one is the client. This is how you take over the lead, yeah? That's as easy as that. Don't say, okay, we have a break, because then they have the break time to even, become closer and form a closer bond as a group. So that's not what we do. Don't say, oh, we have a break and then come back and everything is back to normal. No. Take over the reins, lead them into something, a guided meditation, an exercise, something they all have to do. Nobody's left out. Or do something completely crazy. Ask them to get up and run around the circle 10 times. Whatever. Yeah. As long as you're leading, they follow. They need to follow you. One person takes over the lead is also happening sometimes. You have this one person who's always asking questions, which is nice, to a point. But then, and they always agree with what you say, yeah? They always agree with what you say, and then they feel like safe, and then they feel safe. And then all of a sudden they say, when you say something, they say, yeah, I know. They want to comment on that. Yes, I know. This is how to end. And then they want to add something. And what does it tell you? They want to sit on your chair, in truth. They don't want to be a participant. They want to be a facilitator. Of course, they are neither qualified to do that, nor are they there because to do that, because obviously they are a participant, right? So in this case, you can do So either do a constellation with this person, of course, but if you don't want to do that, and if it's not appropriate, or maybe they had already a constellation or anything like this, you would say, I know that's drastic, but believe me, that works very well. You would get up, you would go to him, and you would ask him to get up, and you would sit on his chair. And they would look at you and you would say, you take my chair. They would be so embarrassed. You don't want to embarrass them, but you're just acknowledging what is, you know? Because you see, they want to sit on my chair. Why not? You take it literally, yeah? And that would change the whole dynamic, yeah? And then you can laugh, and then you can get up again, and he can sit down on his chair again, and you can make it a joke, and then everything is fine. He will never do that again. I know it's a bold move, but you can, you grow into that. Okay, last but not least, what is when we make mistakes? We own it. We always make mistakes, let alone that there are no mistakes, because they are all just learning opportunities. Yeah, and nothing can go really wrong because everything is guided. So if you think you did a mistake, because you forgot about a representative or something or whatever you think could be a mistake, you didn't hear somebody saying something important, or whatever you think is a mistake, it's guided by the field. Everybody gets what they needed in this moment, and you just own it. And maybe if it really doesn't feel right to you, then next time you make it differently if it happens again. But don't ever dwell on what happened in the past as such. That is not making anything better. Yeah. And by all means, just learn to trust the field more. If mistakes happen, then that's what's supposed to happen. It's all part of it. Right. So what else? There's more coming. So another trap is feeling confused. Like, you know that in a practice workshop, right? You come to that point, and then you feel confused. You don't know how to proceed, right? And that will happen all the time when you start. And don't worry about that. That's just normal. That's just what it is. What I would suggest is focus on the family of origin if you feel confused, because you probably have just put too many people up there. And believe me, there's always work to do with father and mother. Always. That's never ending. Huh? So if you don't know where this goes and you have mother and father there, you are focusing on this relationship and ignore the others. When you lead with when you forget, like that's kind of when you feel a little bit trapped in the corner or something, cornered in a way, yeah, then it is probably that you are compelled to take over the leadership with authority and say, quiet now. No, I'm the one who says what's going on here, right? That can happen. You have to own it. It's not the way. It's not a good way. You're not winning the group over with that, obviously. Yeah, but just own it. Yeah, okay, I shouldn't have actually let it come all the way. Yeah, it was a little bit late, so I should have taken over the reins earlier. That's actually what you know from this. That's your learning experience. And then not closing the constellation at the right time is, of course, something that's going to happen to you. What is the right time? The right time is the peak of a constellation is when the client is having a sigh of relief. Therefore, even if you are in a complicated constellation with lots of people, lots going on, never lose sight of your client. You always look at your client wherever the client sits and see what reaction he has to certain movements of the soul. And as soon as there's a sigh of relief, you wrap it up. Because it's all you need to know. And if there is no sigh of relief, when do you wrap it up? You wrap it up when the representative of the client feels a sigh of relief. Or feels it's at the right place. That's then the next hint for you. And if you don't come to this point, but you feel this constellation is exhausted, then you break it up where it is, which is totally fine, because constellation doesn't need to be finished. While you do the constellation, the movement of the soul continues on and on and on. Yeah. So what you have enabled in this constellation is not the end of the story. It will continue to move on. Okay. Oh gosh, I forgot how much more there's just to fall into. So this is pretty much the same as before. Waiting to finish a constellation is like you kind of this happy ending syndrome. You want a happy ending. You want to see a happy end. Everybody's happy. Everybody's in the right spot. Forget about that. Yeah, that's not necessarily happening, and it doesn't need to happen either. So a constellation is in this regards never finished. So you can't wait for that. You have to wait for the sigh of release. That's all you need to have. Or you have a time frame. You say, okay, my constellation, no constellation is longer than 45 minutes. Put the timer on, and when the 45 minutes are up, then you say, we wrap it up here. You can do that. That's totally legitimate.
Legitimate.
Legitimate. Thank you. Some things are absolutely. Okay. Overlooking an important fact of personal constellation is what you consider a mistake, so own it. Yeah? You don't repeat the constellation with this missing person, right? Oh, I forgot the grandmother. Come, get everybody up again, and let's put the No. The constellation is over, done with. Own it. It wasn't, for some weird reason, the grandmother didn't want to come out in this constellation, and the client can always come back now if it's still needed. That's also a biggie. The client wants to talk about the meaning of the constellation. In a workshop setting, I would say no. You have no time to talk about that because you want to constellate for others, right? And also, if you are kind of dissecting a constellation too much, you are losing the power of it, right? As well. And you really want to allow the movement to take place and keep the bubble intact on the client and let that all happen. However, there's always room for an exemption. If the client is really confused, cannot make any sense out of it, yeah, you might feel compelled, maybe even the group, you might feel compelled to pick one point, one thing out of the constellation and briefly explain to him why that was. So the client feels assured that this was not random, that there was a structure behind, and you know what it is about, and you had the oversight. That's all they need to know, right? And then you say, look, you don't need to understand it. Your mind is not helping in this. What I have seen made totally sense. There was a breach of the second order of love between your great-grandfather and your grandfather, and they have found harmony and balance again. So be reassured that this soul movement has happened, and it will ripple through the whole family over time, up to 6 months after constellation. That's all you need to say. You don't need to explain what the second order of love is. You don't need to say why you saw that. Nothing. You just need to take over the lead and reassure them that you know perfectly fine what was happening. Yeah, so they can relax. And then the client is not satisfied with the result. What can we say? We are not delivering results. Remember that. And you can say that to your client. We are not delivering this result. We are facilitating for the family system. And that's what the family system wanted. And if it's not what the client wanted, so we always go with the family system. No. Always see the bigger picture. Okay, so we rounded up with another quote. This is not from Bert Hellinger. This is from Bert Hellinger's favorite poet. I don't know who of you know Rainer Maria Rilke, a German poet. Kerstin knows him. He is amazing, very, very high vibrational. Bert Helling loved him. He was citing him all the time. He was reading him all the time. And I love him too. I mean, everybody loves him who is a true seeker, if you will. And he's saying, if you have this love, this is a translation. He's a German poet, so this is a translation in English. If you have this love for what is humble and try very simple, as someone who serves to win the confidence of what seems poor, then everything will become easier for you, more coherent and somehow more reconciling, not in your conscious mind perhaps, which stays behind, astonished, but in your innermost awareness, awakeness, and knowledge. I hope this touches you a little bit and it reassures you that all you need to be is humble. Yeah, and not doing too much. Other than taking over the lead, of course, right? Okay, we see you tomorrow. It's late, so questions, please write them down if you have any, and then we discuss them at the beginning of tomorrow's module. I will send you like 15 minutes before we start a new Zoom link, because I don't think I can fix it over the weekend. A new Zoom link. Forget about everything you have you got before. A new Zoom link, and that's where we meet.
Oh,
awesome. Looking forward.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.